Hello and welcome to another edition of our GCU's Canyon PD's Wednesday webinar series. I am excited to bring a fantastic guest on today. She has so many accolades in her pocket, and I'm going to tell you that she's going to introduce herself in a second. But Ms. Robyn Yewell is a teacher extraordinaire in so many ways. I met her as a science teacher, and yet today we're going to talk about unlocking potential working with neurodiversity in STEAM education. So our special guest, Robyn Yewell, she is no stranger to STEM, science, STEAM, and now STREAM. And without further conversation, we're going to get her to tell us a little bit more about herself. So Robyn, if you don't mind introducing yourself to our Wednesday webinar guest, that would be fabulous.
Awesome, and thank you for having me. My name is Robyn Yewell, and I'm a teacher in Tucson, Arizona. I work for the Amphitheater Public School District, and I am a gifted teacher. So in addition to my pre-K-12 gifted endorsement, I have a couple of other endorsements, general science, early middle grades and secondary mathematics, and then also English. In 2017, I was the Arizona Elementary Teacher of the Year through the Arizona Science Teachers Association. And in 2020, I won a presidential award in elementary science teaching. And then in 2022, I was inducted into the NAU College of Education Hall of Fame. And in 2023, I was a semifinalist for the Arizona Teacher of the Year.
Isn't that fabulous, folks? I mean, you have somebody who has so much experience in front of you. I probably would have botched that. So thank you so much for explaining all of those amazing accolades. And I really would say that, Robyn, beyond all of these prestigious awards that you've won, you are down to earth. You are so kind. And ultimately, you put relationships at the forefront. So as much as you are, you really accomplished in the science and STEM area, we appreciate how fortunate we are to just know you. And one more thing, she also trains STEM training with us at Canyon Professional Development.
I do.
Yay! All right, well, let's jump right into this awesome quote that you chose for us. And if you wouldn't mind just telling us what the quote is and why you chose it as an inspiration for today's talk.
Sure. My quote comes from Albert Einstein, and he said, "It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge." And we all know that in order to be a really good teacher, we have to listen to our kids, and we really have to embrace who they are at their core and get them really to open up to us. That way we can hone in on their skills and do what we can as educators to allow them to succeed.
So it's really our responsibility to build that relationship and allow them to create the expression and knowledge. Thank you, Albert Einstein. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. And then if you wouldn't mind, tell us, where are we going to go today? Because I think a lot of folks right now are wondering, neurodiversity. Where am I going with that? And what's new in the research surrounding neurodiversity? And how did you get into it with STREAM? That's high academic. And now we're dealing with neurodiversity. So tell us a little bit about kind of our trajectory for our talk today.
Okay, we're going to begin just talking about how we as educators can embrace neurodiversity. And then we're going to move into different instructional models that are flexible to meet the needs of all students. And then also looking at accommodations and modifications for optimal success. Then I'm going to talk to you about sensory-friendly environments and labs, probably things that you may know a little about, but you may not have really thought about like what that would look like at your school. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about a great STEM and STREAM resource, which is Arizona Odyssey of the Mind.
Okay, I'm really excited. And I also want to just start out by saying a lot of our teachers are saying, my goodness, I have to do so much anyway. I have this feeling that if you're telling us that we can really embrace this neurodiversity across very challenging academic areas, are you gonna show us some tools and tips about how we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm very excited to move along. And so let's talk about embracing neurodiversity, even for those of us teachers who are a little skeptical. So give us a little bit more information.
Okay, so basically the idea of embracing neurodiversity is realizing and understanding that as humans, we all have different gifts and that our brains work a little bit differently. So instead of just focusing on, a particular set of students or kind of looking at students and saying, well, that child may need more, they may just need something that's a little bit different. So neurodiversity can include anything from ADHD. Our gifted learners are also neurodiverse. It could be anything from any sort of like language processing or even dyslexia falls underneath that umbrella. So it's really all of those things that make us who we are and being able to meet those needs for everybody in the classroom.
Embracing that neurodiversity, it's a lot. So there are lots of different definitions of what students need, but to me, it sounds like personalization.
Yes, absolutely. And in addition to personalization, it's all about meeting the student where they are as an individual.
Okay. And that's really important, meeting them where they are as an individual. So respecting their individuality.
Absolutely. I mean, and really focusing on what makes that student diverse and really using that diversity in order to build lessons that are engaging and relevant to their needs.
Okay. Okay. So these are some tips.
Yep. So I'm going to start off with the one that I think is the most important and kind of where to start if you're a new teacher or you've been teaching for a while, but you're kind of unsure, is really to educate yourself. So there are a variety of classes that you can take online, and there's a ton of research out there that really is has best practices for what teachers can do so that they know all of their students. So really just a starting point would be looking into different types of neurodiversity and learning what those are and learning what those things look like in the classroom. So not just focusing on the student with ADD, but also looking at, okay, so I have students that are autistic, or I may have students that are gifted, and just really knowing the ins and outs of what that means to that student and then what that means to you as their educator. The next thing that I would suggest is the inclusive stream challenges. So when you're looking at your diverse population, really look about how you can make learning accessible to all of those kids. So you're not focusing on, we're going to do this one thing. You kind of have to make it ambiguous. That way there's multiple jumping in points, because that way everybody can find their footing and jump in. So
Okay, stop you for a second. You said
yep.
multiple jumping in points. So
Yep.
it sounds like differentiation. Am I in the right track?
It is. It's definitely differentiation, but it's also designing challenges for the students that they can take it. Like you give them the base of it, and they can take it and they can run with it. So not being so rigid in terms of, hey, we're going to do this challenge today. And this is what I want you to do. Instead, hey, we're going to do this challenge. This is the solution that we're trying to find. How can you engineer a solution? So leave those parameters pretty open. That way, everybody can bring something to the table.
Okay, and Robyn, one more thing. I don't know that we've really defined stream. I know a lot of folks know what STEAM is. Are you leaving that till later, or are
No,
you going to give it away now?
no,
Okay.
thanks for reminding me. So the reason why, I mean, STEM is absolutely very important, but it's just a sad reality that more and more school districts are cutting that time and incorporating more reading and writing time or more time for mathematics. So if you're looking at a full stream integration, you have the science, you have the tech, but then you're also using reading. So that way you can flex your time and saying, hey, we're reading about this natural disaster. Now we're going to do a STEM challenge that centers around that. That way it's very comprehensive. You're looking at units that span across multiple core content areas. So that way you don't have to be in a situation where, you don't have enough time to teach STEM, or you don't have enough time to teach science. You can integrate that all together. And then the E is engineering, and then the A stands for art. And then of course the M is math. So I think art is also a really big component. A lot of our gifted students are gifted either verbally, so they're gifted linguistically, or they may be gifted with a visual spatial or some other area of giftedness. But generally speaking, art is an excellent way to learn about the world and the world around us and where we belong in it. And integrating art within a STEM lesson and reading is pretty essential, so that the students can really see what they're doing in the classroom and how that applies to real world situations around them.
I love that. And it's very strategic. So
It
here
is.
you're saying reading and art, utilizing reading and art to teach a science or math or engineering concept. You
Mhm.
kind of sneak it in, and yet they're imagining solutions, or maybe they're working with the engineering design process to come up
Yes.
with some brainstorming or ideation. Okay, great. Continue. I just wanted to make sure that we covered that base.
Oh, thank you. And then the next way to embrace neurodiversity is to really look at, so that whole stream component, how can you plan um, lessons that span across a lot of different core content areas, but also incorporating what you have around you in terms of nature. Students in general like to get outside, they like to explore the environment that they're living in. So by planning lessons that allow kids to go outside and watch the clouds, or look at plants, or observe, different animals, depending on where your school is, that also is a great avenue for students, because generally speaking, just being outdoors, especially if you have kids that have that are neurodivergent, and they may have some sound issues where the classroom gets too loud and they have to put on the headphones. So by taking kids outside and doing something with nature, they're able to kind of catch, the quiet and the calmness of being outside. And I definitely think that that is beneficial.
So, and that's awesome. We were just doing a STEM leadership cadre retreat up in the mountains, and I tell you what, it's just that science is all around you. And we did there was a raptor show there at the White Mountain Nature Center, and the kids they stop and just absorb when they're outside. Now, granted, we were watching birds, so that was very exciting. But I think there's so much to be said about getting kids outside. And of course, my computer science background really, I see hackathons for neurodiversity. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So I think that there is more than one way to do a hackathon. So when thinking about hackathons, you might think, oh, we're going to get on a computer and we're going to do some sort of hacking program. But our neurodivergent kids are perfect not only for using computer skills, but also for kind of hacking that is off the keyboard, or that is unplugged hacking. So you could give them a challenge where they have to piece something together, they have to find a solution, but maybe it's not electronic. The other side of that is you could just do a hackathon with students and put them at different levels and have them doing different things. And maybe the students are switching the activities that they're doing, just so that there is something for everybody. So everybody has equal access to learning in a style, or I want to say hacking in a style that makes sense for them.
So I like the concept of hacking being like hacking a solution rather than hacking into a computer. And
Yes.
that is my cybersecurity background. So I'm kind of thinking in that realm. But if we change that mindset, let's hack the solution, then everybody, you get to that personalization again of the individual learning for each student. I also love mindfulness. I mean, it goes back to nature. Tell me how you use that in the classroom.
So in terms of mindfulness, I just make myself aware that students need a break, even if it's a stretch break, or we're going to take like a wiggle break or something like that. So I kind of try to break it in. So when the students come in first thing in the morning, you're taking attendance, they might be doing something in terms of bell work that is allowing them to like do an exercise, or just kind of like get moving for the day. But then as the lesson is progressing, putting in those breaks so that if students are sitting down for a long time, they have an opportunity to kind of get moving, or allow them to, if they need to, go stand in the back of the room instead of sitting in their seats. Because for some of our neurodivergent learners, it's hard to sit down for extended periods of time. So just thinking about that and just being mindful of what would best benefit the students. Sometimes it's a little bit inconvenient, but at the same time, it definitely helps with student learning if you know that you're allowing them to stand up and listen to you instead of sitting down, or you're allowing them to doodle a little, because you know that they're listening. And if they weren't doodling, they would be doing something else. And of course, the goal is always to keep everybody engaged.
I love it. I love it. So just a few more, like you don't have to go through each one of these, but
Yeah.
do you have a favorite?
So I like the neurodiverse dream role models, simply because representation matters. We all know that. So if we have students that are like on the spectrum, or something else that makes them neurodivergent, just to get examples of scientists that are neurodivergent, or mathematicians. And that way they can see themselves in those future careers because they have somebody that is like-minded to them.
Ah, Temple Grandin always comes to
Yeah.
mind. She's such a great advocate for neurodiversity. And I love these photos. So you mentioned headphones. Is that pretty typical? Like, do you see some kids needing that extra calming factor sometimes? And I just noticing what you have here in your photos.
Well,
These
absolutely, absolutely. So, I probably haven't taught in the last 5 years where I haven't had at least 3 students in my classroom that have needed headphones just for sound. I also have students that will ask me if we're working to be able to listen to music just because that calms them when they're working. So that's that whole entire thing about just being flexible in your instruction and allowing students to really be themselves and not making a big deal if the student wants to wear headphones or not making a big deal if the student wants to stand. So you're really meeting the students where they most need to be met.
So, and very flexible. These kids they look like they're having a blast. How much work was this for you? I mean, I see a couple of cups here, so that doesn't seem too bad, but there's a lot
Yeah.
going on over here on this table.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate. So my school district has a maker space in pretty much every single school. So we're pretty fortunate that we can just schedule the time to go in there and make things. So that was one of those. We had worked on a project. We had that full integration of stream in there. That way it was multidisciplinary, and then the students were able to come in and just because it's a maker space, we say, hey, come up with a solution but they have a lot of different supplies that they can work with. So it's not really narrow in focus, and that's where that ambiguity piece comes in. And then for the cups, that was a great way to get students to know each other in the beginning of the year. And then last but not least, the student with the headphones. I mean, I think that educators can kind of be worried about integrating tech into their classrooms because they may feel as though kids get a lot of tech at home, but it's something that the kids are really into, and it definitely does make a difference for the kids if they're able to pursue their interests just as much in the classroom as outside.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll continue on. I know flexible instructional methods and accommodations and modifications. Now, I know as a regular classroom teacher, and I've got, students with special needs in my classroom, I have to change my mindset that it's not one more thing. It's just personalizing the learning. Tell me how
Absolutely.
you do that with that flexible instructional method.
So really, and I won't go through all of these ones, but I'll just hit a couple. But the number one thing, and I know that you've mentioned it, you brought it up, is that differentiated instruction. So it's really looking at the data that you have from your kids and really saying, okay, if this is what we're going to learn, who knows it? And if they do know it, how can you extend them? And then if they don't know it or they need extra supports, how are you going to meet them as an educator to scaffold that instruction for them? Another one that's kind of a big one when working with neurodivergent students is the sensory-friendly instruction. So just keep in mind that some students may not want to touch sticky things, or they might not want to touch things that feel soft or rough, and just have a variety of materials that are available for students. So instead of just like passing out a bag and saying, okay, here's a straw, here's sandpaper, here's rubber bands, give them a choice of different things that they can use. That way, if they don't want to touch the sandpaper or anything like that, then they don't have to. They can find a solution using a method that is best suited for them. The other thing that I really, really love is self-paced learning. And this is hard for educators to kind of let go and be that facilitator. But if you know that a student already knows the curriculum and has mastered the curriculum, give them something that they're interested in by surveying them and saying, hey, what are you interested in? Basically, how can I help you? That type of thing. And then allow them to work on a project while the other students are working on something that that they need reinforcement or they need to be taught those standards, and allow those students to kind of move ahead through their own self-paced learning during the span of the unit that you're doing.
I love the fact that you're asking them the question, what do you want to learn? What a concept, right? Like the more we like what we're doing, the more we'll like to do it. So sensory friendly environments and labs. So you're creating labs that are sensory friendly. In other words, my guess is that there's more sandpaper. If kids, there are more options. There are
Yeah.
more options. Is that what you mean by that?
Yep. So I kind of touched about it, but these are just some other things that you could throw in there. So the quiet space thing I've already touched upon. So not only allowing kids to use headphones or listen to music, but give them a space in your classroom that's maybe like off to the corner or somewhere that you've designated a quiet space. That way, if kids need a break, they can kind of go there and they can sit down and they can ground themselves before they come back to the whole group instruction. Um, the note-taking assistance. So this I see a lot of times in IEPs or individualized education plans, and then also 504s. So those would be accommodations within the classroom. But if you know that a student has difficulty writing, allow them to use voice to text on a Chromebook. And then that way they can talk their story or they can talk their notes. And you can always go back in, or they can always go back in at a later time with assistance from a peer or the teacher to go in and check the spelling and the grammar and all that other stuff. But just to allow students in the moment to be able to take notes. If you want them to take notes on their own, just think about the technology. And then I love the extended time because sometimes as educators, it's just really hard. If you're teaching elementary, the time kind of flows in. So you're a lot more flexible at the elementary level because if you run over, of course, if you're going to lunch or a special or something like that, that's different. But if you're running over, usually from one core content area to the next, you can just flex your time.
I love it. And thank you so much for giving us these sensory friendly, like this concept of thinking about, okay, what makes a sensory friendly lab? Tell us a couple of your favorites here.
So the lighting is a big
You.
the lighting is a big thing. And just to like be aware that it's hard for even adults to sit underneath fluorescent lights all day. So if you have, they sell the different covers that can go over the lights, so you can get like a cloud effect or take turns and have natural lighting in your classroom, or just get lights that you can plug in. That way, even if you don't have access to large windows, you can still give them lighting that isn't the lighting overhead. I've already talked about the sensory friendly materials. I do think that feedback and adaptation is pretty important in terms of ask the students, is this working? What can I do to, make your learning better in terms of what can I do as an educator to make you feel more safe in your learning environment. And that feedback piece is essential. I mean, it's part of that community building, and students are stakeholders, right? They come in our classrooms, they come here to learn. So by allowing them to give feedback and then adapting based on the feedback they're giving you is an awesome and amazing thing to do as an educator. And I wouldn't say that it's a one-time thing. You're constantly doing it. You change, your students' needs change. And so just kind of keeping up with that and just, always being in check with students, knowing, what their needs are as educators. And then the last one I'll talk about is adjustable workstations. So it's just hard to sit at a desk all day long. So I've seen some pretty creative things that, that teachers have done in terms of just going to get, like one of those organization baskets and putting a pillow on top of it. And then that would count as flexible seating. Or, if you have a rug and you have pillows, they can sit on that. Another teacher I know went to Home Depot or Lowe's and got, and had asked for carpet samples, and they had a whole bunch they were getting rid of. And so the students were able to take the carpet samples when they sat, if they wanted to sit in the hallway or they wanted to sit outside. So just be willing to kind of bend in terms of the traditional classroom seating, and just allow the students, like if they're going to work, then allow them the opportunity to work, maybe with a little bit unusual methods, but just so that, they're learning.
A great idea. And it's also research based. I mean, John Hattie talks all about, how am I going, right?
Yeah.
Ask your students, right? That feedback is so important. Where are we going? How am I going as the educator? Are we working this out? And then where are we going to next? So always super important. I know you want to tell us a little bit about Odyssey of the Mind. Tell us about Arizona Odyssey of the Mind and why we should be interested in this as STREAM neurodivergent teachers.
Okay, so Arizona Odyssey of the Mind is a great fantastic tool. And I can kind of speak as a student. I participated in Odyssey of the Mind, so I was an OMER. And then as an educator, when I first started teaching, I became a judge, which is really fun as well. And then about the last 10 years or so, I've been teaching Odyssey of the Mind teams, and I've never actually taught primary, which is going to be your K2, but I have done 3, 5, and then 6, 8. And then this year I'll also be tackling the 9, 12. But basically what it is that it is a creative problem solving challenge where there are all aspects of STREAM that are integrated in there depending on what your student interests are. So there is a vehicle problem, and there is a tech problem, and there is a structure problem where the students have to build a structure with balsa wood. And knowing that they're going to build to break, then they have to put weights on it. And then there's a classics problem and a performance problem. So any of those problems, the kids are going to have 8 minutes at the end when they compete at regionals. They'll have 8 minutes, so they'll work all year long on a skit, and they'll build the backgrounds, and you can have experts come in and show the kids how to do things, but the kids have to do everything by themselves. So you could get somebody in that will show the kids how to sew, but then the kids have to sew their costumes themselves. So there's absolutely no outside assistance with Odyssey of the Mind. Another benefit is that, this is going to be your pinnacle of creativity and problem solving. The kids do everything, which is really awesome and amazing. It ties into so many things that you're teaching in the classroom. The skills that you're teaching your kids will definitely be utilized if you participate in Odyssey of the Mind. It doesn't matter what grade band you're in, there is something for everybody. Another aspect that I love about it is that parents are more than welcome to volunteer. And even if you're not a parent, a lot of different schools and organizations that have teams will just ask for community involvement, either from that expert angle or help coaching a team or gathering materials and resources and stuff. They also do have scholarships. So if there is a financial barrier that's preventing a team from registering for Odyssey of the Mind, Arizona Odyssey of the Mind, and then the National Odyssey of the Mind organization, they do scholarships because they don't want any single kid not being able to participate in this awesome opportunity because of anything financially related. And there's definitely a global network. So once you join, you're part of the OMER family, and it is a worldwide competition. So you compete regionally, then you compete at the state level, and then you go to world. And so this is just a couple of pictures. So the students, the one with the girl who has her thumb up, that's just like a carpet was rolled in that. So they painted it, they put the lights, they did like all the wiring on that. And so that's really cool. So you definitely have that STEAM emphasis in there. The middle one was actually taken a couple of years ago when that team was competing in Michigan. So Michigan State University, I should say, and then a university in Iowa, they take turns going back, but everybody meets there worldwide to compete against each other. You get teams from Australia and China and Japan, and you can even have a buddy team too, and that's really awesome. And then the picture with the two little girls with the trophy, they start in kindergarten. So if, you can have 4 or 5-year-olds start with this program. The other thing, in addition to those 8 minutes where they have to write the skit and then do whatever the criteria and then follow the constraints of the problem outlines lays out for the kids, is that they also have spontaneous. So they'll walk into a room during the competition, and it could be a hands-on problem where they can't talk to each other, or it could be a verbal problem where they have a certain amount of time to brainstorm together, or it could be verbal hands-on problems. So it's constantly pushing the students' creativity and having the students become innovative and free thinkers, and it just integrates all those elements of STREAM that we love so much.
Robyn, I'm just so excited. You have really inspired me to think about elementary neurodivergent STEM and STREAM. Obviously, But I think what I like the best is you ended with a STEM competition, and you could insert a different competition here, but Odyssey of the Mind really seems to speak to the neurodivergent students.
Mhm.
I mean, the concept of mind and being able to really do all of this on their own. But what you're saying is once you get them into competitions, then there's a global community. So they're
Yeah.
not only learning about science, technology, engineering, math, reading, art, but they're doing it together in this global community. So hats off to you for all the work that you do with your students and to get them prepared for this type of competition. And even if it is an Odyssey of the Mind, I do suggest educators really look at something outside the four walls of the classroom to get their students connected with another group, a competition. And I know Odyssey of the Mind is just one fantastic way to do that. Clearly, this is why you're the presidential award winner too, Robyn Yewell. This is exactly why you just gave us so many great ideas. I know that I took away, number one, educate myself as an educator, make sure I know about my neurodivergent students and ultimately what's out there that exists to support me as an educator. I got self-paced instruction, sensory friendly labs and environments that can be not, light. I'm a huge light fanatic. Like if I don't have the right light in my home, I don't feel right. So
Yeah.
it's great that you said that, and different textures. And I just think I haven't thought about it that way before. Quiet spaces and voice to text, and just a few takeaways that I got. So thank you for that. I know that our audience got a lot more. Folks, we don't take this lightly. We're here to empower, educate, and inspire you, our community, so you take action to fulfill your purpose and to serve others. Please don't forget to connect with us on social media. And I also want to remind you that Robyn is a STEM educator with us at Canyon Professional Development. So you want more, I know you do. Guess what? You can get more in person, live in person, these amazing STEM educator trainings. You can just go straight to our website. We'll put the show notes in our YouTube channel here, and you too will be able to go ahead to the in-person workshops or on-demand courses. And I'll tell you what, Robyn, thank you so much for being a part of our team at Canyon Professional Development, bringing these amazing experiences from your classroom into ours. So folks, don't forget about that, and subscribe now for more free PD, teachers like Robyn coming on, presidential award winners, and last year Arizona Teacher of the Year finalist. Is that right?
Semi-finalist.
Okay. Well, I'd give you a finalist knowing who you are and how amazing you are in every day in your classroom. So thanks so much for being here with us today.
That's my pleasure. My pleasure. I love GCU. And I also want to say, for the asset training, I have met so many wonderful people, and just the networking, and it's amazing. I cannot tell you, because I went through it as a participant as well. And it changed the way that I think about STEM education.
Oh, what a wonderful compliment coming from someone like you who already has a lot of it all down. But what you're saying is that you love to learn and you're never going to stop.
Yep,
I love
absolutely.
it. Well, thanks again, folks. And thank you very much, Robyn. And we will be next month back with you again for another Wednesday webinar. But for now, that's it. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.